Well, let's get into a little bit of a post-game reaction to the Nuggets and Celtics game that happened last night in Denver. Pretty close game throughout the entire game. Both teams came up to the challenge, were ready for it. And I want to get into a few specific things about this game, though, as this is probably going to be the finals preview at the end of the season. And more than likely it's going to be between these two teams, and it's going to be close games throughout the entire finals between these two teams. But first things first, some stats here. The Nuggets won 115 to 109. Pretty close game throughout the entire game, as I said before. Tatum didn't have a great night, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 for 13 from the field, 2 for 5 from the three-point range, had 5 turnovers as well. Jaylen Brown, though, had a season high, and he was the one that was the catalyst for this offense for the Celtics and really kept them in the game. If it would not have been as close if it wasn't for Jaylen Brown and how electric he was last night. But he had 41 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 16 for 29 from the field, 7 for 14 from the free throw line, 2 for 7 from the three-point range. Didn't shoot that well from it, but only had 2 turnovers too, which is really good. Porzingis 24 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 for 10 from the three-point range. He struggled all night as well. Drew Holiday really wasn't making any noise, only 12 points, 4 rebounds. Didn't have a single steal or a block either. Derek White 7 points as well, and that's basically about it. I mean, it's basically just the starting lineup for the Celtics, and then Al Horford coming off the bench. So it's not really a ton for the Celtics bench wise. So if their starting lineup isn't hitting their shots and creating most, if not all of the offense for the Celtics, it's going to be a tough task for them to win. Moving over to the Nuggets side of things, Aaron Gordon 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 for 15 from the field. Jokic, 30-point triple double, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 11 for 19 from the free field goal range, 10 for 10 from the free throw line. Exceptional from the line. Didn't take a single three-pointer though. And he had 2 steals as well. Jamal Murray, a little bit quieter of a night for him, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists though, 7 for 18 from the field, 4 for 4 from the three-point or free throw line, and he was 1 for 4 from three-point range. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had a nice 11. Peyton Watson off the bench had a nice 11. Christian Braun had 7 off the bench. Um, as you can tell now that the Denver Nuggets have a deeper team. They have a little bit more offense coming off the bench. The starting lineup doesn't have to do every little thing to keep them in games. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for this finals matchup that I think is going to happen. And it's going to come down to, can all 5 starters for the Celtics with Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, and Derek White, can all 5 of those guys basically carry offensive and defensive sides for the Celtics for them to have a chance to win a title against the Nuggets? Because Horford's just getting too old. Tillman, they just picked him up. He really doesn't do much. Hauser and Pritchard, they're not great enough. They're not athletic enough to really do much, especially with the length with this Nuggets team with Aaron Gordon, Porter Jr., Jokic, Murray. Caldwell Pope is great defensively as well. Christian Braun and Watson can give you some defensive things too. Reggie Jackson, a great um offensive mind and IQ player for the Nuggets. So the Nuggets just have more ways they can win. And a big thing that the Celtics need to do for them to be even have a chance to win is Tatum has to show up in big games, in big spots late in the fourth quarter for them to have a chance to win. I mean, I've never thought Tatum was a clutch player at all. I mean, leading up to the finals, even against the Warriors, I mean, he had 2 or 3 games where he just disappeared, and it was all Jaylen Brown that was just keeping them in games and putting up points, like 41 last night. He was keeping them in games. I've seen this story over and over with the Celtics. They live and die by that three-point line. They live and die by Jayson Tatum being able to put up points. Um, and he's not doing it in clutch. If he can't do it in the clutch, Celtics don't really have a plan B or a plan C. You know, Drew Holiday is a great player, but he's not a bucket getter. That's not his you know type. Porzingis can hit the threes, but if he's not hitting threes, he's not as big of a threat as he could be, especially with like Jokic, who can hit threes. Aaron Gordon, who can hit threes. Michael Porter Jr., who can hit threes. All those guys are above 6'10" and can just stretch the floor and hit shots. If Tatum's not hitting shots, Porzingis isn't hitting shots, Holiday's only giving you 14 points. And who's to say Jaylen Brown's going to drop 41 points every single game? That's just not his type of player. That's not who he is either. So I think that's the biggest challenge for the Celtics team is if they're not hitting their 3-point shots and if Tatum just disappears in the fourth quarter or he's really cold because Tatum can be streaky, especially in the playoffs. There's countless times against the Bucks matchup where he drops 14 points. The next minute, he drops 48 points. So it's just so up and down with Tatum and so up and down with these 3-point shots for the Celtics that it's hard to rely on them. And with the Nuggets, I can rely on them. I know what I'm getting from Jokic. I'm basically getting a triple double. From Jamal Murray, I'm basically getting get 24 points, 5 rebounds and 6 or 7 assists. I know with Call Up Pope, I can get 10 from him. I know he can hit 2 or 3 3-pointers. Watson and Braun can hit 2 or 3 3-pointers, get me 9 points. Porter Jr. is probably the most inconsistent offensively, but he still can give you, 2 or 3 3-pointers made. Get some buckets, still get 10 to 12 points. Gordon, I know he can lock up the best wing player, like a Tatum, like a Brown. He can still give me 14 points. I know what he can do in the paint. So I just know what I'm getting from this Denver Nuggets team, and I don't know what I'm getting from the Celtics team. They live and die by that 3-point line year after year after year. They were 11 for 38 from the 3-point line, 29%, and they lost the game. Denver, 4 for 21 from the 3-point line. That's 19%. Nuggets don't live and die by that 3-point line. Celtics do. Denver can score at all three levels in the game. Celtics, it's really just the 3-point line. I mean, that's basically it, or getting in the paint. Um, Free throws, they don't really take a ton of free throws, but I feel like that needs to be an asset of their game that they need to pick back up. They shot 25 free throws last night, which is really good. Three more than the Nuggets did, and they were 16 for 25, 64% from there. You'd like to see them maybe up that a little bit, but if they're not hitting the 3-point shots, they need to get other teams in foul trouble. They need to try to get Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. in foul trouble, maybe go at Jokic a little bit with Porzingis. Um, they need to add different aspects of their game because when it comes to the finals, when it comes to playoff runs, you can't live and die by one way of winning basketball. You have to win in multiple facets and multiple dimensions of the game to be successful throughout the playoffs and to ultimately win a championship. And the Nuggets have been able to do that, and the Celtics just haven't been able to do that within the last 6 or 7 years. It's just lived and died by that three, lived and died by Tatum showing up, which sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. So I still think the Celtics will get out of the East, unless the Bucks seriously pick it up and are consistent enough defensively and offensively. They have a better identity, but I think the Nuggets are really scary. I think the Nuggets are almost locks to make it to the West. I just think they're kind of coasting a little bit. I saw a report that they're not even going to go to the White House to celebrate their championship. They're just going to stay back and prepare for the Timberwolves or whatever. So to try to get that number 1 seed. And I think that this Nuggets team they've got some traits of a possible back-to-back title and possibly maybe even a dynasty down the road. Um, each player knows their role. Their coach just knows exactly what buttons to push at what times. There's really no ego there with the Nuggets either, too. They like being under the radar. There's not a lot of pressure on them like a Lakers or Celtics or Golden State Warriors type of teams. Um, their superstars don't really have, any diva like mentalities or anything like that. Jokic is just quiet. He plays basketball, goes home. So uh Nuggets are looking really scary. And I think this is a finals preview. And the Celtics are gonna have to learn from this to have a chance to beat the Nuggets come NBA Finals playoff time. But getting a little bit into Jokic, he had 32 points last night, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 11 for 19 from the field, 10 for 10 for free throw line, as I said, 2 steals, only 1 foul as well. So I do think Jokic will win his third MVP this year. He's playing like the best player in the league. It sucks that Embiid went down because he probably would have been the MVP, but Jokic was in the running from the start with Embiid, so it makes sense that he is possibly going to be the MVP, and I think he will be. He just consistently plays at a 30-point triple double basically every single night. I know exactly what I'm getting from him. He's the most consistent on this Denver Nuggets team. And, his team is just winning basketball too. And I know people bring up Tatum, but Tatum inconsistent enough. He does in a big game like this, in a possible finals preview in Denver, you needed to show up to possibly state your case for an MVP, and that just didn't happen. And I think, voters are more willing to give an MVP for a second or a third time to a player if they've won a finals already, which Jokic has. He's won a finals MVP as well. So I think voters are more willing to give it to Jokic because he's proven he can win it all. And he's proven he can be the most valuable player on a championship team. With Tatum, that's not the case. He's been to a finals, but we haven't seen him win it. So I think until Tatum wins a finals and wins a finals MVP possibly too as well, I don't think he'll get a regular season MVP. I think that's a little bit with Luca too. I know Luca's been to Western Conference Finals, but he puts out amazing numbers, but those numbers don't necessarily lead to wins all the time. And Jokic's numbers lead to wins all the time. So I think that's the biggest difference with, Luca and Tatum. And I think those would be the top three for me, MVP voting wise. I know people bring up Shea, but um I just think Jokic is more valuable than him right now. And I haven't seen the Thunder in the postseason. That shouldn't account for the regular season, but it does. Unfortunately, it just does. I mean, I can't give a regular season MVP to a player that doesn't show up in the postseason or doesn't win a playoff series. It just doesn't make sense like that. So I do think Jokic will win his third MVP this season too. And that's rarefied air right there to win your third MVP. He's already won a Finals MVP, an NBA championship, possibly could win his second championship and second Finals MVP. Like he's hitting the trajectory that we thought Anthony Davis was going to hit of possibly being, the best big man or modern big man since like a Shaq and or in Tim Duncan. So Jokic he's starting to hit that trajectory of possibly doing those type of things. So I I think I think he's gonna do it, and I think the Nuggets are gonna be right back in the finals again, and I think so are the Celtics. So, we're starting to hit that postseason stride. You can start envisioning who you're gonna play in the first round, second round, the paths to the conference finals and the championship ultimately. But I think at the end of the day, it's gonna run through Denver when it's all said and done.